It is Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and you are logged on to Love Bay Radio, your number one online radio station for Afrobeat music, Caribbean music, talk radio. We are so grateful that you have joined us for Community Conversations. We are bringing you a very special edition today because there's been recent news that has made us more aware, if we didn't know already, about a lot of the products that we use as Black people in our hair, on our skin, being proven as endocrine disruptors and as carcinogens, which means that either they directly cause cancer or they trigger processes in your body expected to lead to cancer and other disruptions of normal function in your body. So, endocrine disruptors can promote hormone positive cancers, such as breast cancer, ovarian cancer. It can also lead to infertility, um, PCOS, as well, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and many other disorders and diseases that lead to infertility in Black women. I have the pleasure, we're going to jump right in because, like I said, it's a special edition today of bringing you someone who is fighting day to day, not a fad, not because it just came up, but someone who has been committed to this cause to help us support ourselves, educate ourselves, and the generations following us. So please, production, please bring up to the stage Takiyah. Takiyah is going to share with us some real truths and drop some nuggets here. Takiyah, please do us all a favor. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your organization and how you got started.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nadia, and thank you for having me this evening. It's an absolute pleasure. So again, my name is Takiyah Wedderburn. I'm the founder of Natural Kids Movement. It's a nonprofit organization that I had actually founded in 2015. It really began as a grassroots organization in 2015. So at that time, I was a few different things were happening. I was doing my bachelor's at TMU. I was doing my bachelor's in child and youth care, and at that time, I had a thesis paper that I was working toward, and I was looking for a topic that something that uh, I could really delve into and do as much research as possible, and also create some awareness about a particular social issue that was impacting specifically Black children and youth. My professional role, I'm a child and youth counselor, child and youth care practitioner, and I've been doing this role now for about almost 20 years. So my job is I work with vulnerable and marginalized children and youth and communities. So that's really been my passion and really my purpose in the last couple of years. So through my research and trying to find a topic for my thesis paper, I was working with a few of my professors at the time, trying to find a topic. I knew I wanted to do something that was different. That was a different topic that none of my other classmates had selected. And through working with my different professors, they had actually helped me sort of hone in on a particular issue, which was the child welfare sector. Specifically in Ontario, that there was an overrepresentation of African Canadian children and youth in the child welfare system. And I thought that was a really interesting topic because I didn't really know much about foster care or child welfare. So I was really interested in that. And I figured the best way for me to really immerse myself in that topic was to become a volunteer. So that's what I did. So I became a volunteer for a local children's aid society. And I was working with a few different families over the course of my time as a volunteer. A lot of the families that I was supporting were non-Black. They were non-Black families that were caring for a Black child. And oftentimes they really struggled with how to take care of the child's hair, their skin, and how to support their self-image. So at that time, I had the worker that I was connected to. I had reached out to them to see if maybe there was a program or a service that I could direct the families to. And at that time, there wasn't really anything. Around 2015, 2016, there wasn't anything. And I essentially decided to create something of my own since there wasn't anything out there. So I came up with an idea to put a care package together that would address those specific needs to the family. So hair, skincare products, culturally relevant books, really to support the child and their self-image. And then I had pitched it to the local Children's Aid Society. They really liked it. I was essentially using my own money to create the packages and then giving them out to different families and youth. Um, and then since then, it's sort of taken off since then. And it's really been a mission for a Natural Kids movement to really be a voice to the Black children, youth, and the child welfare sector, and also as well, just to bring some awareness about the importance of natural hair care as well, and how to take care of natural hair. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how I got started, and really the mission of Natural Kids movement.
I love that. First of all, as a person who works in the nonprofit space, it's always so enriching when you hear, "I saw a problem, I did something about it."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the entrepreneur story, whether or not you're in nonprofit or for profit. It's, I saw something and I had to do something about it. And thank you so very much for your work and for your effort. And for those who aren't familiar, give us what TMU used to be called.
It used to be Ryerson University, downtown
Right. So
Toronto.
yes, for those of
Yeah.
us who don't know that, there was a shift in that name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, before we jump in a little further, tell me about your natural hair journey.
Journey.
Have you
Yeah.
always been natural? Did you do relaxers? Tell me about your trust
Yeah.
that you're sporting now.
For sure. So I have not always been natural. I've actually been natural since I think 2012. So it's been over 10 years since I did the transition to no longer chemically relax my hair. So it's actually interesting how it came about. I started chemically relaxing my hair, I think when I was about 7 or 8 is when I first started, which is quite young to start putting those type of chemicals in your hair. But at that time, I mean, it was more of a fad. Um, that's what a lot of people around me were doing, what you were seeing, in the media, and what was sort of being portrayed on TV. I had a few of my cousins that were close in age to me. They had relaxed their hair, and I really liked it. I liked how it looked, and then they shared with me, some of the benefits that they were experiencing, that it made the wash days a lot more easier for them. They weren't spending as much time having to style their hair and whatnot, and I wanted to experience that, because getting my hair done on a weekly basis, my mom and I had a routine on a Sunday before the start of the school week to get my hair done, get it braided. And it was always quite very stressful for me as a child getting my hair braided. And it was quite painful as well. It was just very anxiety provoking for me. And it was something that I would try to avoid all of Sunday, trying to just avoid my mom having to comb my hair. And being able, and then I begged my mom for quite some time, for me to get it permed, or a relaxer for some time. And then finally, after a few months of me begging, she finally gave in. We had a family wedding to go to, and she thought that would be a good opportunity for me to get it done. My first experience with perm was quite traumatic, in the sense that the person that did it for me, I think they left it on a little bit too long, and it ended up burning my scalp. But I think as Black people, we tend to sort of have an attitude of no pain, no beauty. type of attitude. So, and then I knew that it was going to burn just from speaking to my cousins and their experience, but you just sort of tough it out. And even after that, my first experience being quite negative, I continued to perm my hair for a number of years, continued into my 20s, continued to perm my hair. And I don't know, I think it just made me feel accepted in society and amongst my peers as well. I grew up in a suburban area where there wasn't a lot of Black folks, so it really helped me to fit in. I felt more confident when my hair was permed, and then there was a shift for me in 2012. There was also, the natural hair movement was sort of taking off and whatnot, and I started to really question why I had started perming my hair to begin with, one, and two, who was I perming my hair for? And I think once I reflected on that, I realized that I was not perming my hair for myself, but more so for the image that I felt other people wanted to see of me. So after sort of questioning that and really reflecting on some of those questions, I decided I wasn't ready to do a big chop. So I just sort of let the perm grow out. And I found a little protective style that I could do in the meantime so that you wouldn't be able to see the different textures in my hair as I was growing it out and slowly trimming away the permed ends over time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. I like that you were able to gradually make this change with some knowledge. Use the term protective style that I want us to talk a little bit more about what that means. But I really wanted to touch on, you talked about that idea of toughing it out because, beauty is pain, no gain, and how that actually reinforces other ways that we are taught as young Black children, what the expectations are of us in the face of a traumatic experience, so that by the time we are now the adults in the conversation, we are more used to just having to swallow the pain,
Mm-hmm.
and how something as simple but still profound as our hair and our usual Sunday routine, how we've lost, that Sunday nights with mom and daughter could be a beautiful thing. This could be a time for, interrelational communion with, between the generations. But it has been for all of us over the years an inconvenience. It has been painful because we lacked education on how to deal with our hair, how to treat our hair so that it is healthy and, bouncy and manageable is the word that we tend to use when we opt for, chemical relaxers. And so, now you talk about the protective style. So tell us a little bit more about what that terminology means. Are there good
Mm-hmm.
and bad protective styles? Are there things that we are saying are protective but actually are in themselves harmful? What do you define as a protective style?
Yeah, so I would define a protective style as a style that allows you the ability to tuck away your hair from the harsh environmental effects, so like cold and heat. So protective styles can be anything from single braids to cornrows to twists, um, locks, various forms of locks as well. There's so many different. I could go on and on about the different types of protective styles that there are out there. But in terms of whether there are good and bad protective styles, I mean, I think any particular style you never want to keep for too long, because obviously you want to be able to give your hair a chance to breathe and to get a break. You also want to make sure that you're cleaning your scalp as well. So I would say some bad protective styles could be like micro braids, especially along your hairline. That can cause a lot of stress to your hairline over time, especially if it's braided quite tight. So that may be, a not so good protective style. So you definitely want to make sure that the edges of your hair are not too tight, as well. And definitely taking breaks in between. Like, for example, with braids, I know for me, I try not to keep my if I have my hair in single braids, for example, I try not to keep it for more than like 4 to 6 weeks. And even in between that time, I'll try to, as best as I can, I'll try to wash my scalp if I'm able to. If I can't actually like immerse the braids in water, then I may do like what's called a dry shampoo. And a dry shampoo is essentially how I do it. Is I'll put a dish with some water, um, and I'll add a little bit of shampoo to it. I'll use a cloth, and I'll use the cloth with the shampoo water, and I'll just sort of dab it on my scalp a few times, and then I'll repeat that same process with clean water, a clean washcloth, clean water. Repeat the same process to get the shampoo residue and anything else, any kind of buildup, and then I'll follow up with my favorite oil to moisturize my scalp, and then a nice leave-in conditioner as well, just to again keeping it moisturized. And also, when you're doing a protective style, you always want to make sure that you're moisturizing your hair. Keep your hair moisturized. That could be a leave-in conditioner with some water in a spray bottle every couple of days. And really just tuning into your hair, because you'll be able to see and feel if your hair feels dry, and you'll be able to tell, when your hair needs a little bit of extra TLC, tender loving care, or a little bit additional moisture.
Here talking with a muted microphone. Thank you so very much, Takia. And for anyone who is joining us now online on live radio, you are listening to Community Conversations on your favorite Love Bay Radio for online music, talk, Afrobeats, Caribbean music. And we are here with Takia from Natural Kids Movement. She's the founder, and she's sharing with us the journey of her organization, her own journey with hair. And now, Takia, let's talk about what's been coming out in the news of late. And it's not new news, um, but I think it's getting a lot more attention, a lot more play. Maybe we are paying more attention ourselves. Maybe the advent of social media and the proliferation of social media is making it easier for us to have news like this become ubiquitous more quickly. And so let's talk about the ingredients that are found in the things that we're putting on our skin, in our hair, for ourselves and for our children, and share any wisdom you have with us on things that we need to be paying very special attention to, things we need to look out for, things that tend to be hidden in the information. How can we take the information that you're sharing with us and turn that into wisdom so that we're doing better this time around?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that when it comes to anything that you're putting on your body, whether it's what you're ingesting, or whether it's what you're putting on your body topically or in your hair, I always stress the importance of reading the labels, and doing research about the different ingredients that are found in those particular products. Um, like, I think over the years, I've worked very closely with a naturopathic doctor for a number of years, and I know one thing that my naturopathic doctor always stresses to me is, when you pick up an item at the store and you're reading the ingredients on it, if you cannot pronounce it, it's probably not good for you. So that's been a rule of thumb that I have used throughout the years to allow me to make decisions on certain products, that I may purchase. And I would say, just living any kind of lifestyle obviously takes time. And it may not always happen overnight. Just going back to what I was saying about my journey of deciding that I was no longer going to chemically relax my hair. It's something, I know for some people, they just maybe go to the hairdresser, chop it off, and then they just start fresh. Um, for me, it was a very new experience. I wasn't ready to do the big chop. I just did the slow transition. And the same thing going back to natural, any kind of natural um, products or whatnot. If you are looking to be a little bit more intentional about the things that you're putting on your hair, things you're putting on your body, things that you're eating, start slow. Start slow. Allow yourself the opportunity to do the research about the ingredients and finding out what maybe some of the side effects could be of some of those ingredients. I know just recently, as I had mentioned, I have been big on wearing braids. I do like wearing hair extensions as my protective style. And within the last year, it's been circulating a lot online about the different types of synthetic hair that is used for braiding hair. And that's something that I wasn't aware of until maybe about a year ago. And then I started doing some research about some of the negative effects of the chemicals that are used in those braiding hairs. I think the most popular one, I believe, is Kanekalon hair, and some of the harsh effects of using Kanekalon over a long period of time, and it being connected to different forms of cancer, and just different forms of ailments and whatnot. So again, going back to research, I had to do some research to find out, okay, well, whenever you go into the beauty supply store and you're looking for braiding hair, the Kanekalon hair is the most popular. That's usually the go-to ingredient that's found. Most of the braiding hair contains that particular ingredient. So I had to do some research to find out what other alternatives there are, and there's so many other alternatives. There's different plant-based braiding hair. There's one that's made with.
Are you able to share any of those with us? I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the Kanekalon and Teokalon and a
Yeah.
few of those, but yes, myself, I have a 10-year-old daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and generally we'll put her hair in braids for a few weeks, give her a month off, and go again.
Yeah.
And then we saw this, and we were like, "Oh my gosh!" And of course, how silly, because I always just thought the word synthetic, it just meant fake, but it is also a specific chemical process that's meant to mimic something that's natural. Um,
Exactly.
and so it was kind of like, well, duh, this can't be good for us. How did we not
Mm-hmm.
think about it? No, but then we consider cost, don't we? Because not everyone can afford human hair, so
Mm-hmm.
you'll go with the synthetic fibers instead. So please share with us any of those plant-based fibers that we can use as an alternative.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have a link now, share it with us, and we'll make sure that it is below this video in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube. But yes,
Yeah.
please share with us those plant-based ones.
Absolutely. So there's one, I think it's an American company. I can't think of the name of the company off the top of my head, but they actually use banana leaf fibers to create their braiding hair. There's also another company, I believe they're located in Philadelphia. And that one, I don't remember the name of the brand again, but they actually have a process where they will wash. So they do use, so it is Kanekalon hair, but they have a process of stripping the chemicals out of it, and using more natural ingredients for that. Those are also some alternatives. And then again, as you mentioned, the other alternative would be just to use human hair, which is, as we all know, human hair is quite expensive, but that is another alternative as well. and yeah, those are just a few options that I've researched and I've come across in the last little bit.
Thank you. While you were sharing with us, I found one of them that has the banana fibers. It's a rebundle, so
That's it. Yeah.
rebundle.co. Yep.
Mhm.
And then I found another one with different plant-based fibers. It's nurihair.com, and we'll make sure that those links are posted in the video for you. If you are listening to us online through the app, through the website, you may not know that you can actually watch us live or catch the replay on YouTube at Love Bay Radio, where you will find these links that Takia is sharing with us. So thank you for that, because I think sometimes we are made aware of a problem, but not always offered us a workable solution. Right. So thank you for offering us real solutions because wearing our hair open all the time is not always an option and it's not necessarily healthy either. So now we are looking at the fibers that we add for protective styles. You're talking about reading the ingredients. Can you pronounce the ingredients? Are there ways that you're aware of that things can be hidden in the ingredients?
For sure. So I know, especially like through like the pharmaceutical companies and all of that as well, they have like different names. So unfortunately, a lot of the companies have gotten very sophisticated with hiding some of the ingredients or changing the name for it, so it maybe sounds a little bit more, I guess, a bit more consumer friendly, if you will. But I always say, at the very least, I mean, if you're able, I mean, obviously, it's absolutely impossible for us to avoid all of the different chemicals that are out there unless we choose to move somewhere on an island, um, and we're able to create our own produce and our own goods and all of that. But I always say that, wherever you can, if you can create your own products, I try to create my own, like certain hair care products. I try to create on myself. For example, in our care packages, we have shampoo. So we have a special supplier that we work with that provides our shampoo and our conditioner, as well as the shea butter that's found in our care packages. And those suppliers that we work with, they're all natural ingredients, organic ingredients as well. So we really try to be mindful of the products that we include in the care packages for Natural Kids Movement that we are providing to the youth, the Black youth that are in care. And like I said, I mean, if you're able to create your own products at home, I mean, there's so many different ways to do that. Like I make my own like a shea butter mix for my hair. When I'm doing my twists out, I'll do it myself. So I'll start with the base of just raw shea butter, and then I'll add my favorite oils to it, and I will literally sit there in my bathroom with a butter knife and mixing it by hand. Usually the oils kind of help to soften it a little bit, and then just use that. And then that's what I use in my hair. I mix a few different oils as well for my scalp. So I'll mix a few of my favorite oils, which are really good for maintaining moisture as well as hair growth as well. So just doing research to find out, whatever your hair needs. So for example, if you're dealing with breakage, finding out what kind of oils are good for breakage. If you're dealing with dry scalp, what specific oils are good for dry scalp, and then trying to incorporate all of those ingredients into your hair care regimen is really important.
Yes, yes. Um, and you mentioned the care packages, which I was really curious about and really
Mhm.
hoping that you could share more about that. Tell us about the dolls that are included in the care package and why it's important,
Mhm.
for children to be able to play with toys that are familiar to them, familiar to their surroundings.
Yeah, for sure. So the care packages, they come with 6 items. That comes with a shampoo, a conditioner, a shea butter. We have an Afrocentric book, which is age appropriate or based on the child's developmental level. We also include 2 hairstyling tools. So depending on if it's the male care package comes with an Afro pick and a hair sponge. And then the female care package comes with a wide tooth comb and a soft bristle brush. And we just realized that it was really important to include those particular items because those were the areas that a lot of the foster parents were really struggling with in terms of, knowing what kind of products to use specifically on the child's hair, on their skin. With the doll, we do have the dolls that are available for the female care packages. The dolls are optional. So we do have, there's a black Barbie doll as well as a black baby doll. And both of those dolls they come with hair that resembles Afro kinky textured hair. And it's really important to have dolls or even just toys for children that really reflect who they are and that look like them. I know, like for me, going back to when I was a child, that was an area that was really important for my mom to make sure that I had dolls to play with that looked like me and that had hair like me. That was really, really important. I think it's the same thing, in this day and age that children have. They have toys that they can play with, toys and dolls, even TV shows where there's characters that look like them. There's books with characters that look like them so that, they have that, they're able to relate to those particular items on a cultural level.
Yeah. So now let's get into that a bit because you're talking about your work with CAS, Children's Aid Society in Canada, and parents who are not of Afro centric, Afro heritage homes, who are fostering Afro children and potentially adopting these children as well, and having to, for the first time, interact with such a unique texture of hair that requires very unique attention and care. Tell me how those conversations go. How did you? I mean, I'm sure CAS was just like, "Oh, please, please, thank you," when you brought this, a solution to them. But for the families, what are the responses you're getting from the children? What are the responses you're getting from the foster parents about this direct intervention that you're offering?
Yeah, so I would say the direct response that I've been getting from the families, so the foster parents and the children and youth themselves that are receiving the care packages is just a sense of relief. Um, it's definitely a sense of relief because they now have some items that have been tailored to them that are culturally specific to them. I have heard so many countless stories from the youth that I've supported over the years of them receiving, for example, around the holidays, they would receive like a laundry basket full of personal care items. And unfortunately, a lot of the personal care items that were in these laundry baskets were not culturally, sensitive to them, and they couldn't use many of the products. So they would have to either give them away, or if there's other children or youth that are in the foster home with them that are of a different ethnicity, they would then maybe pass it on to them. And I think that in itself, I think would create a form of trauma and a form of feeling like, asking questions like, what's wrong with me? Why can't they use the same hair, skincare products as the other children in the foster home with them that are of a different ethnicity? So there's definitely feelings of isolation when they can't use those particular products. And there's also, I've heard stories of some foster parents, just not knowing what to do, not having any other options or knowing what to do. So they may have to resort to, cutting the child's hair, which in itself can be quite traumatic, or having to chemically relax the child's hair because they just can't manage it in its natural state.
I mean, and that's a term that's so interesting, natural state, because
Mhm.
that's also pretty unique to our context, you know. And yes, there are other people who use chemicals in their hair, but it's particularly Black culture, and not just in North America, but throughout the diaspora, that tends to have a whole separate type of hair from the hair that just grows out of our head on its own, right?
Yeah.
Um, now, now that you're doing this work, um, and you're able to share these opportunities and this education with families and youth who, I mean, as young people, they themselves are growing up needing to understand personal care and self-care, etc. But as you're doing this work, what do you see as the future for natural kids movement? How can we have fewer parents standing in the aisles reading the ingredients and just be able to pick up healthy things off of the shelves? um where can we go with this?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think the vision for Natural Kids Movement is really just to um, create awareness, and it's not just awareness in the child welfare system, because um, as I said, when I first started, I had no direct connection to child welfare or foster care. I didn't know anybody that was a child from foster care, so it was quite foreign for me. But I still felt a connection to the challenges that these youth were facing, in terms of feeling that they were um, not being recognized, and not being understood, um, and really just feeling like they weren't enough, because though those were feelings that I had, feeling inadequate. So I can definitely relate to that. But yeah, I think just creating the awareness for everyone, regardless of your age, your gender, your ethnicity, your race. I think that this particular issue does affect everybody. We're all taxpayers. So the experiences of these youth that are in care is really important, and really trying to prepare them as best as we can, prepare them for success, because these youth are going to become adults. They're going to be the ones that are essentially running our country. Um, and the best that we can prepare them for that, the better, so that we have less youth that are in the criminal justice system. We have less youth that are dealing with a housing crisis. That they have adequate access to housing, they have adequate access to different job opportunities and whatnot, is really important. So I think just creating awareness that this is really, it's not a child welfare issue per se, but it's really just it's an everyone all around issue for everyone that is a citizen of Canada. This is an issue. So it's a global issue that everybody needs to be aware of, and we all need to work together to try to come to a solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, for those of us based in Canada, I don't know about you, Takia, but the trek, the adventure to find the right kinds of ingredients, in our products. The hardship of watching teenagers grow up and them not having a plan for housing as generations before would have had a set plan, for when do you go to school, when do you study, when do you move out of your parents' home. That's not a pathway that our youth can chart in almost anywhere in Canada at this point, but definitely not in the um, metro centers, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, all, so many places are facing the housing shortage. And so we have all of these layers of things that we have to deal with. Then we are faced with the reality that we've been constantly and consistently throughout the generations sold bags of lies when it comes to things that are called natural, called healthy, called, all of these words that we are looking for, but aren't quite, once again, the promissory note, it's a blank check that's bounced, right? um I've learned recently, as we're having this conversation, about the endocrine disruptors in things that help fragrance to last longer, right? So called phthalates. It's a very strange word. It's a ph then a th right at the beginning, followed by an l, so a word that we are not meant to pronounce, as you said. And they're not listed because they're embedded in the word fragrance. And legally, the companies are allowed to withhold the specific ingredients that are captured in the word fragrance because that's where they hold their intellectual property. Now, those are laws created to protect industry. How do we get protection? What do we do when we are aware of these things and we understand that transparency is not necessarily um, a hallmark of most of these large industries? How do we get justice? How do we stand up for ourselves and our children and fight back? What do we do in the movement?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think definitely that's an excellent question. I think, firstly, whatever brand it is that you're using, so whether it be products that you're buying at the grocery store or products that you're using for your personal care, personal hair care regimen and whatnot, I think it's really important to get behind a brand that you believe in and that really promotes transparency in terms of the ingredients that are in their products is really important. I really appreciate companies that are very transparent in terms of, their ingredients, how the ingredients are sourced, also as well, exactly where they're located, who are they hiring to create the products, right? Are those individuals that they're hiring, are they being paid adequately? Are they being treated equitably? Are they working in fair working conditions? So these are all questions that really, you need to ask yourself when you're trying to align yourself with a particular brand or a particular product. Is really just trying to align yourself with a product or a company that is very transparent and open about their ingredients, their products, how their products are processed, how it's made, how it's sourced. All of those are really, really important questions to ask yourself. I mean, I think it's one of those topics that you can really become quite overwhelmed by because, I think we're living in a society where, obviously, as I mentioned before, we're not living on an island on our own, creating our own products. I mean, to a certain extent, obviously, we do have to source. We have to source our products and our supplies from certain companies. So there has to be that trust that the products that you're purchasing in the grocery store are are fair, they're equitable, they're being sourced in an equitable manner as well. But I think just trying to do your best. Try to do your best. I mean, we're not, unless we were to just live on a farm and be able to make all of our own products. But I think just doing the best that you can is really all that we can do. Just try the best that you can to make healthy, conscious decisions about the products that you're purchasing and that you're aligning yourself with.
Mm. Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more, kind of going back to an earlier point on, our hair being an inconvenience for us. Because standing in the aisle reading ingredients, we can now take that as a new inconvenience for having natural hair, or new inconvenience that's brought about by having this new knowledge, you know. So let's talk about that reinforcement of what it means to care for ourselves, to take that time, that self care and personal care and cross generational care, that these are worthy investments of anything that we try to do now and for the future and for future generations. Talk a little bit about how we can kind of like relish in the time that we spend on our hair. How can it become something that we look forward to? How could Sunday ritual become n- something enriching for ourselves and our families as opposed to a drag? What
Mhm.
are some tips and techniques that you've shared with families about the time that it takes to pour love and nourishment into here and into that self-care practice?
Yeah, so I think so. Some tips that I've shared with families over the years is, trying to block out, a certain number of hours in the day dedicated to your hair. So if you're, picking a wash day, um, I know I was referring back to Sunday earlier in what I was saying, but yeah, picking a wash day, whatever that looks like, whatever works for you, and just blocking out that time, and that's your time for you to connect with your hair, or for you and your parents or your caregiver to connect with each other, to sort of have like a debrief, discuss, how the week was going. So kind of create some healthy conversation about the hair. I always say as well, it's really important how you speak about your hair is also very, very important. I'm a big believer in positive affirmations. Positive affirmations about your hair is really, really important. Um, Funny, actually, a friend of mine, a really dear friend of mine, she actually has a company called it's called Parting the Roots, and she has a line of affirmation cards, and it's something that I've used over the last little while. I've used that in my interactions at different workshops, and it's a great way to sort of create some conversation. So just using the affirmation cards just to sort of get the conversation going, looking at the pictures that are on the affirmation cards and asking, what words come to mind, when you see this image, how does it make you feel? What does that look like for you is really, really important. So I always say, yeah, definitely just going back to, how you, like, what you say, what comes out of your mouth about your hair is so important. And just making sure that it's always positive. Positive affirmations about your hair is really important. Um, and also, too, I think, if you hear somebody speaking negatively about your hair, or if they're, checking that person to say, hey, you know, I don't appreciate the way that you're speaking about my hair in this way, you know, and being able to call people out. Because I know for me, when I decided to transition to natural hair, my hairdresser at the time, she was my hairdresser for like maybe over 10 years. I'd been going to her and she'd been styling my hair. I would see her on a weekly basis. And when I decided, I told her I was no longer going to chemically relax my hair. She didn't think it was a good idea. She advised me against it. She's like, it's going to be too difficult for you. You have a lot of hair. It's very thick. How are you going to style it? And I remember she told me that she didn't think I had good quality. I was a good candidate for natural hair. And that to me definitely stuck with me for quite some time. But but I wanted to prove her wrong. So I said, okay, you don't think I'm a good candidate for natural hair? I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do my research and I'm going to figure out how to make this natural hair thing work for me in the best way possible. So yeah, again, just creating a healthy space, a healthy time for when when you create carve out a time to do your hair, whether it be on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, and just creating a positive atmosphere. Playing some nice affirmations in the background about your hair, or even just some positive hair songs. I have a playlist on my phone that I use, which is all about black hair, and they're all positive and affirming songs and poems and spoken word and all of that, which definitely makes for a good healthy environment when I'm doing my hair.
That sounds like a great resource. A playlist, a hair day self care playlist. And I love when you talk about making sure that the whole space, like the whole space is wholesome, the whole space is conducive to this sense of, interconnection, across the generations, or intraconnection within ourselves, to have that moment be a moment of internal beauty extending outward. It's so lovely. It reminded me of some research I came across by a former colleague of mine, Bianca Jones Marlin. And she actually has been able to prove and document um, intergenerational trauma using mice. And so they would introduce a fragrance in particular because the olfactory senses are directly connected to memory, which is something that we know in biology. It's a given. It's knowledge, right? That we are already aware of. And so, that's why sometimes people who've experienced trauma to the point of temporary um, amnesia, introducing certain fragrances or odors or things that might be reminiscent of their past can actually help them to trigger some of those memories. And so, they would introduce a scent to the mice, and then give the mice a little shock, just a little shock. And they'll do that a couple times. And then they'll have the mice reproduce, and then thank the mice for their service, is the terminology used, and then peer into their brain, and they can track over 14 generations that the olfactory senses are now clued into a specific fragrance. And so for the next generation, and it is, interestingly enough, stronger through the lineage on the father's side. So we'll get to talk about dads in here, shortly. But it's stronger on the lineage through the father's genetic makeup. And so they're able to show for 14 generations by triggering this sense in mice that they are predisposed to fear. And so the conversation that we're having in this space while we're doing our hair, and there's lots of amazing smells that we use from our various oils, and that we put on our hair, how important those conversations are, not just for us, but for the generations to come, because these things are deeply embedded in our epigenetic code that help us to understand our place of survival. And so when our hair becomes a part of the tapestry of the enemy, then we, is like a self-fulfilling prophecy of autoimmune cultural disease. We attack our own selves, and these conversations, if you talked about a conversation with someone that you've trusted and built relationship with over the years, a professional in this space who should be able to give you sage advice on how to care for your natural hair, any kind of natural hair, because our hair is good hair, full stop, right? And so, if you were younger, right, if you hadn't come to this knowledge and made these conscious decisions and you were a young child being told these things about your hair, how deeply embedded and enrooted could a comment like that be and be associated with other triggers in that environment that then, derive the sense of negative self-talk in other spaces. You walk into a boardroom and somebody's wearing a cologne that's similar to a scent from the salon, and you don't even know that you've just discounted yourself in that space, right? And so that real importance of the quality of conversation that we are having with ourselves and with our children when it comes to our hair care and our self-care. Now, dad's in here. I could tell you stories about both my dad and my stepdad struggling with my hair. And the book Hair Love, I think, every Black family who understands, dad is there trying to figure out how to tame, this wild raging hair and even that language, right? What are the conversations you're having with dads, especially in interracial homes? But in all homes, but particularly in interracial homes, what are the conversations that you at Natural Kids Movement are having with dads?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think some of the conversations that we've had with dads over the years has been, I think for the most part, a lot of dads are really, they're really interested. They're interested in learning about hair care and how to be able to support the child that they're caring for, support their curly Afro textured hair in the best way possible, and in a way that I think looks presentable to the world, and being able to provide the child with that confidence that if dad like that there's no difference between if mom is doing the hair versus if dad is doing the hair, right? And going back to Hair Love, the short film documentary, I absolutely love that. I've watched that probably like a million times. I absolutely love that. And I often use that particular short film as in a lot of the different sessions that I have with families, workshops, all of that, really just to create the conversation. And the fact that it's a silent film, but it is so powerful. The message is so powerful in terms of how, and I always say this oftentimes, is that for parents, particularly for a dad, is their level of confidence that they portray when they are caring for their child's hair really trickles down to the child. So if dad or mom is feeling unsure or is feeling not so confident in how they're styling the child's hair, the child is going to feel it. They're going to sense that unsureness from them, and it's going to trickle down to them, where now they're not going to feel very confident about their hair. They're not going to feel that sense of sureness that that they can handle their hair. They can do it. They can style it in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. So that's why I always say to the parents, particularly to the dads, the importance of getting to know the child's unique hair texture, because as we know, natural hair comes in all different styles, all different hair types and whatnot, from a loose curl to a tight curl to kinky hair and all of that. We also, through Natural Kids Movement, we offer educational workshops where we will provide mannequin heads during our workshop sessions. And so all of the participants will have access to a mannequin head, which is made with Afro curly textured hair. So they have an opportunity to have that hands-on experience on a mannequin, as opposed to having to learn on the child's hair. So they can practice and they can they can make mistakes on the mannequin head. It's all a part of the learning process. And you can tell that it definitely gives them confidence, from when they first walk into the workshop, they're not really sure. They have all these questions, and then they're able to ask their questions. They're also able to get some hands-on experience with the mannequin heads, and they're able to walk out of the workshop feeling a little bit more confident and feeling like they have a few more tools in their toolbox to say, you know what, I have a bit more skills that I can now apply when I'm caring for my child's hair.
And I love that. And I'll end us off today with a little story. My daughter, when she was 3 years old, I had left her home with dad with the understanding that they would stay home, and then they decided to go to the park. And so hair day was coming up the next day. But dad put her hair in two puffs, and for all my trying and all the cornrows and the fanciness that I've done, all I heard for the next month was, I only want daddy to do my hair. I love it when daddy does my hair. And I'm like, what? So there is something really special about when dads get involved in their daughter's hair care. Takiyah, thank you so very much for joining us and for spending this time with us, for encouraging us, for giving us tools and opportunities to continue to learn. You can find Takia at naturalkidsmovement.org. If you want to find out more information, register for any of her workshops, or bring this knowledge to a country closer to you. Make sure that you reach out to Takia and her team so that you can continue to share and spread this knowledge throughout the world. Again, we have posted tons of links for you below this video. If you are watching us live, comment and let me know. And if you're watching the replay, comment replay and let us know, so that you can always check upon what we're talking about. Let us know what you think in the comments as well. So if you're catching us anywhere, through the website, through the apps, etc., you can be watching us live or on the replay at YouTube. On YouTube at Love Bay Radio, where you can catch the links that we've posted, learn more about Takia and this amazing organization, and how you can maximize, duplicate, and expand this work throughout the world, because these are important conversations for us to be having. And so, my friends, as always, I encourage you to keep the conversation going.